Welcome back to NOIVAI Podcast, where we sit down with operators and builders and leaders who are shaping the future of industrial America. I'm your host, Nathan Owens III. Today, I'm joined by someone who brings a rare combination of commercial leadership, industry depth, and hands-on customer understanding. We have Shane Frye, Vice President of Sales at S&K Industrial, a company that has built a strong reputation in industrial and manufacturing space by delivering solutions that keep the operations running, team supplied, and the customer support across a wide range of industries. Shane has spent years leading sales teams, driving growth, navigating the realities of industrial automation or distribution, from customer expectations to supply chain shifts to the evolving competitive landscape. Shane, I appreciate you being here. I'm excited for the conversation.
Thanks for having me, Nathan. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
So I always try to start off with the origin story. I'm in my Marvel era now. I love Marvel movies. So let's talk about your story. For folks who may not know you yet, can you share a little bit more about yourself and your background?
Sure. I've been with S&K for 8 years now. I'm vice president of sales at S&K Industrial. I've been in the material handling industry for 18 years now.
Yeah,
It's been quite an interesting period of time to kind of watch this industry evolve and change over the years.
absolutely.
Especially over the last, five years or so, like as
Right.
as
Yeah.
AI and all the different things have grown,
Yes.
um, the exponential change in how things are evolving. It's been really interesting to see and be a part of.
Hmm.
I love this industry because it's very much like I joke with my wife all the time. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to one, I'm a Marvel nerd, so I'll identify with
Oh,
like that.
that's
If I
why we
didn't
get
have my
along.
background blurred, you'd see my gauntlet, my
Yeah.
Thanos gauntlet back here.
Yeah.
But every day for us is in this industry, it's like an episode of How It's Made.
Yeah.
Be able to get to see all the different things,
Hmm.
the different customers, the things they're building.
Mm.
So it's a lot of fun. It's
Yeah.
like I said, it's ever changing and it's an exciting market.
No, I totally agree. I think one of the things I appreciated being in sales is that I like getting out in front of customers. I like seeing what's changing, what people are talking about these days, and getting out in front of different industries that give you a definitely insight into that.
Sure.
As the VP of sales, I mean, what does your world look like day to day?
So I'm leading a team of 10 territory managers.
Okay.
We cover 6 different states in the
Mm-hmm.
Midwest and Southeast. I'm working with these guys to help develop their markets, develop opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
try to identify new customers, how to penetrate those customers. Really with my role, I'm really trying to just expand um, within our current customers, not just within the engineering departments, but maintenance, trying to get deeper with our customers. And
Mm-hmm.
then, one of the big pushes that we've got within our organization now is, for a long time, it's been, product sales. We've got a product that we're going to push, or,
Yeah.
we're a crane company, or we're, an MRO company.
Yeah.
We're really trying to
Wow.
change the culture of our organization is to go from that product sales to more of a solution sales, to that
Mm.
consultative selling role where we're going into the customer and they might invite us in to look at a particular problem that they've got,
Sure.
but while we're there, we're kind of working with them to identify other problems and other solutions that we may be able to help them out with.
Got it. No, so it brings up a good point. And I was doing a little bit of my cyber stalking on S&K, and you talk about in my world. I mean, how do you label S&K today? Industrial distribution, industrial services, or maybe a combination of both?
So we're repositioning ourselves.
Okay.
We don't really like to be um, pinned down into one of those product areas
Sure. Yeah.
because our offering is so wide. So,
Mm.
what we tell our customers is we work with our customers to improve material handling and operational flow within your facilities. So
Mm.
whether that's MRO, whether that's lift assists, overhead
Sure.
cranes, conveyors, all the way to the automation side of things.
Yeah.
We have a solution for all of those different areas. And so we really want our customers to view us as that integrator that can help them from the easiest to the most complex of problems.
Understood. No, that's awesome. That's great. The industry, let's talk about that. The customers that you cater to today. What are some of your most active segments that you're into today?
So, we do a lot with axle manufacturing,
Okay.
a lot of tier one automotive
Yeah.
type areas. We do get into some of our customers are in the military space
Hmm.
with different things like that. We do some food and bev. We're
Wow.
really in a lot of different segments of the market. Try
Yeah.
not to get too pigeonholed into, catering to one type of an industry. We do
Yeah.
some work with large automotive OEMs as well. So we've got really a
Yeah.
full spectrum from, a big OEM automotive company down to being able to work with, a local machine shop that needs some help, helping
Understood.
their guy lift sheet metal up off of a pallet and onto a work table or work platform.
Yeah, no, I think that builds credibility in my mind when I think about that. When you have your hands in so many different areas, I mean, there's so
Yeah,
many things you can learn from different segments that you can probably apply to one, if anything. But no, that's great.
sure.
Let's kind of shift gears toward the sales teams and things like that. You're on the front lines every day. I know that role very well. What are you seeing right now in terms of, customer needs, expectations, buying behavior? I know you talked about that you're moving away from more product-centric sales to
Mhm.
more solution sales.
Sure.
Let's talk more about that.
Yeah, so I part of that is we're seeing a big shift with our customers,
Mhm.
particularly on the purchasing side of things, where they
Interesting.
want to start to narrow the number of vendors that they deal with.
Okay.
These purchasing agents don't want to have, hundreds of companies that they go to, and this is my, this is my hoist person, this is my
Hmm.
robot person. They want to consolidate the number of people that they deal with.
Yeah.
So for us to be able to position ourselves to be like, you can consolidate a lot of your different vendors into us, and we can
Sure.
provide that solution. So, there's that. I think a lot of people are running into labor shortages.
Mm.
So what's driving a lot of the automation is
Yeah.
being able to find people to fill
Ah,
spots. They've
yes.
got,
Yes.
a high turnover position where they
Yeah.
just can't get people in. And so they have big quality issues that are evolved and revolved around that
Mm.
one position that just you can't get people to stay.
Yeah.
Particularly, we've got metro areas that we deal in, but we've
Hmm.
got rural areas, and those rural areas, a lot of companies are struggling to find a workforce to draw from.
Yeah.
So in order to continue to build their business and meet their quotas, they need to look at ways to automate or
Hmm.
to at least simplify the onboard processing. We talk about automation, and a lot of times people think about big solutions. It's got to
Yeah.
be robots. It's got to be this. It could be as simple as a poke station or something like that takes the training. It's not as necessary to have such an in-depth training to execute the station. Like, we can do things to make it very simple for someone to come in off the street,
Yeah.
step into that position and fill that role.
Actually, that brings up a good point. I mean, you looking at your team today. I mean, have you embraced what technology can do to kind of help support your team or make them more efficient? Does AI have you all dug into that technology about how to make your teams more efficient or improve their capability in the market?
So we're certainly working on that.
Okay.
Trying to fully understand how that can help my sales team
Hmm.
knock down barriers. One of the things that we've seen since COVID,
Yeah.
really, COVID's that wall that kind of changed everything for
Yeah.
everybody. But
Global supply chain was in such a disarray at that
sure.
time.
Well, and it was already hard. Cold calling is a rough gig, and if somebody says they really really love it, they're probably lying. But I mean, we do it because it's what we need to do, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And it
Yeah.
was already tough
Yeah.
pre-COVID because you
Yeah.
had the gatekeeper there that was they had their marching orders to keep people out, and so
Yeah.
those gatekeepers were hard to get around. Well,
Yeah.
with the advent of COVID, even those gatekeepers disappeared, and now you've got a phone in a lobby, and
Sure.
nobody wants to answer your phone. So trying to
Mm.
figure out ways to get around that obstacle, trying to
Yeah.
find ways to get in, contact people to draw their interest. So we are exploring some different ways to employ AI to help us find customers who have the needs through, the answer engines out there.
Sure.
You can comb through and they'll pull information. So we're starting to get in on the exploration process of that. I mean, frankly, we've been more concerned with finding out how AI can serve our customers than we have been
Oh, wow.
how it can serve ourselves. So we're working to play a little bit of catch up there, but it's exciting to see what it could do for us.
You bring that up. I like how you position that. So you're definitely looking at AI as a way to enhance what you're doing today, but also you think there's a play to make sure the customer experience is definitely enhanced from that perspective. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, it can be, different ways. I mean, we're
Mhm.
using AI in some of our inspection applications.
Oh,
So,
nice. Okay.
how AI can be implemented with, the robotics and the different ways, even in the like the information that's coming out of the PLCs and things like that, help with the
hmm
data management. So we're learning
hmm
how that can help. So it's evolving so quickly. I don't
Yeah.
know that anyone can say they're completely on top of the game right now, but we're certainly making our best effort because we feel like really understanding that both on the sales side and
Yeah.
the operations side
Yeah.
is how we're going to really be the best partner for our customers.
So, you know what? I think that's a great segue into my next question. Every industry has their friction points. From your perspective, what are the biggest challenges that you're navigating right now?
I think just like all the other businesses, I think we're navigating some crunches on lead time, availability,
Yeah.
tariffs have slowed everything down.
Yeah.
So sometimes the friction points are just getting the material, getting the product
Yeah.
to be able to get into our customers' hands.
Yeah.
But just like, I talked about the labor shortage issues for manufacturers,
Yeah.
it's a tight market. So as all these engineering opportunities come up and the automation and whatnot to help alleviate the pressures of the manufacturer, that increases demand in our market. So that just drives up the value of the engineers and the sales folks that know how to sell that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the installers that know how to put that stuff in. All that stuff now becomes a premium on our end of things. So
Understood.
finding the right people, being able to, get the right person for the right position.
Yeah.
We pride ourselves on trying to do most everything in-house. So we've got a team of about 17 engineers between our
Nice. Oh,
mechanical
wow.
controls and
Okay.
engineering technicians.
Yeah.
We've got quite a robust team internally that we're doing most of the design work and all that stuff in-house. So
Okay.
we've got control of more of those things, but still there's those pressures and those friction points on, you know, getting a CNC machine in from
Yeah.
Europe that takes forever or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's is that an opportunity for S&K Industrial to evolve in a certain way? Because it sounds like you all have a supply chain that's global. I won't say it's definitely in US, but it sounds like it's global from that perspective. Are you looking at a way to evolve from that perspective?
I mean, we're going to try to shorten the string every
Sure.
opportunity that we can. And
Okay.
part of that is by doing as much of it internally as we can.
Sure.
There are
Yeah.
there are some of the products that we have that there's not a lot that we can do to
hmm
shorten their strings for them other than, are there some opportunities to work with our customers to understand, what their demand of that product is going to be, and if we
Yeah.
can, make some stock buys to put things
Yeah.
on the shelf so that we take that variability out. We do look at opportunities to mitigate that in those instances, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, sometimes there's just some of our vendor partners that are tooling or hoisting or whatever, and some of those products are coming from overseas with their global supply chain, and
Yeah.
it just inevitably slows things down a little bit. But
Yeah.
like I said, you try to figure out where those slowdowns are coming from and what we can do to position ourselves to avoid those slowdowns.
No, So when I hear that, that is definitely the evolution of definitely much the operations or the behind the scenes when it comes to some of these industries from that perspective. Now, on the same front, we have to hit that bottom line from that perspective as well, and that calls more investments in what we want to accomplish. As a sales leader, let's think about that now. You led sales teams, you've been on the front lines, you're shaping a commercial engine as we speak.
Sure.
What's your leadership philosophy when it comes to building like a strong sales organization?
So we really want to position ourselves. There's the concept of red water versus blue water, and
Mm,
understanding what markets, what products that we're in,
mhm,
that we're selling, where you're just gonna if you're gonna win the sale, it's gonna be because you're cutting margin.
mm,
There's a lot of competitors, a lot of people involved, a lot of competition for the business.
yeah.
So, it's either margin or it's somehow, large stocking investments, and you've got the product right there to immediately resolve it. So
Yeah.
understanding, where those red water scenarios are versus
Hmm.
those blue water scenarios. And that's again part of the reason why we try to position ourselves as a solutions provider, because if we're looking at protecting our bottom line and positioning ourselves to be the best partner for our customers by
Yeah.
continuing to be in existence, those scenarios where we're able to come up with a solution, uh, a real solution for a problem.
Hmm.
That's where creativity comes in. That's
Sure.
where ideas come in. And
Yeah.
when you're dealing in that segment of the market, there's more margin to be able to be made.
Yeah.
There's obviously sometimes more risk involved in that, so it is a
Hmm.
risk reward scenario. But really, really trying to key on those areas where we have the potential to make more margin.
Hmm.
Um, and then, but also those are the most involved projects and scenarios as well. So making sure that we work with our engineering team.
Sure.
That's another part of my day-to-day operations in my life, is making sure that my team, when we're out there on the front line in front of the customer,
Yeah.
we're gathering accurate, not only accurate, but relevant information for our engineering.
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
There's working between the two sides of the business. Our COO and I have had multiple conversations where,
Yeah.
I'll tell him, look, I'm a sales guy. Like I'm looking at something from the
Yeah.
30,000 foot
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
thinking of it as like the 3-inch level. So how do I speak your language and
Yeah.
you understand what I'm speaking?
Sure.
So, kind of working together to make sure that, we're not just giving them information that they're going to look at as, well, this is just tomfoolery.
Yeah.
Um, Making sure it's accurate, making sure it's relevant so that they know what they're trying to accomplish, what the customer wants out of this.
Yeah.
What are their tack times? What's their ultimate ROI goal? All these different things
Yeah.
that we need to know to position ourselves well to win that project. And then not only execute it internally through design, through FAT, through SAT,
Yeah.
but yeah, even in the installation of
Yeah.
understanding what the facility looks like, what those requirements are.
Yeah. I was thinking when you was going through that, that translation from that people call it the sales side as the dark side to the engineers, I guess that's the light side, but
Sure.
and sometimes that language, comes disconnected. Have you thought about just kind of shifting toward the whole AI topic again? Have you thought about using new tools, or how does AI play into that maybe to stay competitive or keep your team competitive and efficient in how they respond on the job or with your teams?
Sure. Well, part of an advantage for us
Hmm.
when we're coming up with these projects is we would like to try to be the first to the table with a solution. And
Mm,
a lot of times these scope of works are very in depth and very technical and long.
yeah.
So one of the things I know our engineering team does on the estimating side is they are employing AI to summarize these long scope of works.
Got it. Oh, wow.
And we've
Okay.
actually, experimented
Hmm.
with using AI to help come up with, this is the scope of work,
Yeah.
and we want to come up with pricing for this.
Mm,
And it's been when we've checked, what it came up with versus what we came up with, there's some variability for sure, but it's
Yeah.
not horribly inaccurate. So, trying to employ it in that manner to come up with our solutions faster, to be able to
Hmm.
understand what we've been given quicker.
Yeah.
We are currently doing that within our organization, but I think there's some exploration too. Like even with the large number of engineers that we've got, there's going to be times where we might be a little bit slow and
Yeah.
understanding how AI may be able to help in assisting with some of that work as well.
Got it.
You know, the different areas of, we hear about AI learning how to draw and design and do all kinds of different things. So,
Sure. Yeah.
looking at that aspect of it as well.
What's one lesson as a sales leader, or you learned the hard way that made you a better sales leader?
Man, you're trying to dig at the sore spot.
Your psyche.
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the biggest, I lost a project, and this was probably one of the bigger learning experiences.
Oh, those are the ones you remember.
Oh my goodness. So I thought I had this in the bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I went in on this project. It
Yeah.
was a brand new facility, so I was going
Mm.
to get to put every it was mostly lightweight cranes.
Yeah.
Gorbel, I'll give a little shout out to
Okay.
the whole facility. It was mostly all Gorbel cranes.
Sure.
Greenfield facility. We just went in on the crane side of things, and this was
Yeah.
before our shift. This was back in golly 2018. Um, we lost the project
Mm.
because that customer decided that while my pricing was better on those cranes,
Mm.
they only wanted to issue one purchase order to the other company that also had that same product, but were doing all of the machine builds for the assembly line and everything else. They just wanted to cut one purchase order. And so I was better positioned. I was better priced, but they had the more complete offering, and someone above the engineers that I was talking to
Yeah.
decided they wanted to cut one PO, which you can see reflected in the comments that I've made about how we want to be a solutions provider.
Solutions. Yeah, I
You
hear
know,
you. Yep.
we want them to be able to come to us and just cut
Hmm.
the one PO to us now. So, and that has a lot of this has been an evolution since that day.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I can only imagine having those conversations. That will make you a better sales leader, a better sales manager. I mean, at the end of the day, it didn't come down to the solution. I mean, I used to make some controversial statements back in my day,
Right.
and I used to say, and it's public. I was with Rockwell, and I was with Siemens, I was with Schneider Electric. Eventually, everybody has a box. Everybody has a drive. Everybody has a PLC. What's going to separate us is the customer experience.
Yeah.
That will always separate the haves from the have-nots. And, that's when I think a lot of companies start investing in software and services and solutions from your perspective. I'm not going to lead with the product. What business outcome am I solving for the customer from the ideation all the way through delivery? They want a great customer experience. And I think that's where we need to be focusing on. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, hey, as you look now, let's look to the future. Six to
Okay.
12 months out. What's on your radar? What you're preparing for?
Gosh, again, I think we're looking at we're going to have to be more competitive.
Yeah.
I think in the next 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
I don't know that things are going to get easier.
When you say competitive,
Capital was,
what does that mean when you say competitive?
well, I mean, competitive as in obviously winning the projects,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
um, figuring out ways to move the needle. One of the trends that we've seen over the last six
Mm.
six months
Mm-hmm.
or longer, executive teams aren't really wanting to pull triggers
Mm.
very quickly. So, figuring out how we get them to move the needle, how we talk to them, how we approach them,
Yeah.
what are talking points that we can put out there
Mm-hmm.
that would help move the needle to get those things moving, to make them, feel a little more comfortable, you know, pulling the trigger and trusting us with this solution. So, yeah, and I think the market is going to they seem to think that it's going to get a little tighter in 27. So
Yeah.
positioning ourselves to understand what pressures that's going to put on the marketplace and how we're gonna solve those problems.
Yeah.
Again, getting even better and more informed on the AI
Yeah.
incorporation, not just within, like I said, within our customers, but implementing that within my sales team. Like I need to figure out in the next 6 to 12 months how to make the idea of prospecting easier for my team because
Hmm.
we've been operating in the same geographies for years and years and years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I continue to stay stagnant within my
Yeah.
existing customer base,
Yep.
that's not going to take care of the idea of churn and all those different things. So
Yep.
really figuring out the smartest way for us to make it easier to find those new customers,
Got it.
to be able to get our voice into the right ears that aren't hearing it right now. That's our biggest challenge, I think.
Is that though, if you had the magic wand, is that your main focus that you'd be trying to figure out is the speed of market? And when you was going through that, I was thinking speed of market. How you make decisions faster, with the right data at your fingertips. How you get to the market faster. How do you respond to customers? All of that plays as an advantage. And then identifying the right customers. So very targeted, account planning. How does that play into it? Is that your main fix you're trying to figure out?
Yeah, and it's how do I use AI, the tools that are available out there,
Sure.
to figure out, who to target
Yeah.
as a company,
Yep.
but within the
Within the
company,
personas. Hmm.
yeah, who are the different, stakeholders within those organizations.
Yeah.
But even like we're starting to learn there are ways that we can employ AI to find companies who have things out there that
Yeah.
are public record that we don't have any way of finding that out right now, or I
Yeah.
didn't know that we did.
Yep.
But employing those kind of resources to find companies who have a need that we just don't know about, and
Yeah.
then finding again the right stakeholder within the right organization for us to connect to.
Got it. No, makes perfect sense. Okay. Listen, I like to end like this. If you had one piece of advice you wanted to give someone that's up and coming in industrial sales today, what would that be?
One piece of advice: always stay curious.
Mm, mm,
I think we want to, in the 18 years that I've been in this industry,
mm-hmm,
and I see it within my own team at times, we find our comfort zones,
mm-hmm,
we find our product, we find our
mm-hmm,
niche that we want to exist in,
mm-hmm.
and kind of wrapping everything that we've talked about today into put a bow on it. Like you have to be able to be curious to not just understand where you're comfortable, but be able to find a way to get comfortable with other products. And really the idea of being comfortable being uncomfortable. You're going to be curious, you're going to have conversations, you're going to get out there in front of the customer and start to talk about things and ask questions. And you're not always going to know the answers. You're going to
Yeah,
venture into uncomfortable territory because
yeah.
it's uncertain. But the more you expose yourself to those kind of situations, the more you're going to learn and the more valuable you will be, not only to your own career, but to your company and to your customer.
You know, I can't add nothing more to that. That's what people call a drop the mic moment, there, Shane. No, in an industry where technology has sped up, first it was 100 years, then it was 50 years, now it's like 10 years. There's something new is coming out. Staying curious is what's going to keep you ahead of the game, or in the game, from
Sure.
that perspective. Sure.
Yeah.
Shane, hey, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate your insight, your leadership perspective, and the work you're doing at S&K Industrial. Thank you again for coming on the NOIVAI podcast. For everyone listening, make sure you follow the channel, share this episode with someone in your network, and stay tuned. We got more conversations coming up with operators and leaders who are shaping the future of industrial work. Shane, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Nathan, thank you.